Hello everyone, welcome to My Stories. Today on the channel, we will look at the story of how arriving at the rich man's house for a big wash, the wife for an hour almost rubbed her eyes to holes when she saw herself in a picture in a wedding dress. Valerie, we received a serious order to clean the house. It's not an easy order. Our VIP client doesn't count for money. I think you already understand what kind of responsibility it is. Of course, Viktor Sergeyevich, the woman nodded and her knees trembled. She had cleaned rich apartments and even houses before. But the boss had never been so serious. If you screw up, I won't pay you a penny. Got it? What would you have to do? Lara went straight to the point, taking a notebook and pen out of her shabby old purse. You'll get dry and wet cleaning, laundry, ironing, and so on at the standard price. I don't have to teach you. You've been working at Cinderella a long time. You know everything. Do you have any special requests? Walk the dog or go to the grocery store? No, nothing like that this time. Okay, that's it. You're dismissed. Let me do my job. Okay, boss. Everything will be done in the best way. Valeria nodded and left the office. She breathed a sigh of relief. Sometimes working as a wife for an hour was not so easy. There were different clients, and each had his own cockroaches in his head. Once she was yelled at by her landlady for allegedly wearing blue socks, and that color had a bad influence on her aura. Fortunately, Viktor Sergeyevich had a humorous attitude to such a silly complaint and did not fine his employee at the time. Rich people were known for their unusual caprices. This time, too, our heroine feared that she had either met picky customers or the overly rich, who even had a pot of flowers worth more than her monthly salary. Okay, get your act together and just do your job. Valerie encouraged herself as she took the receptionist's bundle of keys to the client's house. Usually she was handed the keys in person, but the owners were out of town now. They went to another gold party, not even bothering to meet the cleaning lady or her boss. What lucky people, said the administrator of Cinderella enviously, laughing and smoothing his shiny mustache. Such people don't need to strive for heaven, because they're already in it. All roads are open, and the cup is always full. Oh, I'm dreaming again. Well, good luck with your work, Lyra, and he laughed softly again. The weather was dank, and Lyra shuddered to imagine how long she would have to stand at the bus stop and freeze waiting for the bus. To her delight, the transport arrived quickly. White for an hour, sat in the warm cabin, smiled, and turned on the quiet music in her headphones to create more comfort for herself on the trip. It was going to be a long drive, so she allowed herself, looking out the window, to dive into memories. Often Valerie thought about her difficult childhood, which had been spent in an orphanage. She did not know her parents, because her mother died when the girl was only a couple of years old, and the information about her mother's death she received from the teachers, who could not stand her whining and blabbed that her mother either drank or simply died for no known reason. It was a mystery that had plagued Lyra for years, but at some point she just calmed down and accepted her fate. Our heroine was a very modest and shy girl. Valeria was afraid to even look at her potential parents for the slightest time. The girl just sat in the corner and played with old toys, enviously looking at those who still decided to take away from the orphanage. How she longed for a loving family, a warm apartment, and a room of her own. She was very unhappy within the walls of the orphanage. Not a bit of warmth, not a drop of love or sympathy was given to our heroine in that awful place. She was counting the days when she could leave the orphanage and never return. When she was older, the orphan girl dreamed of arranging her own apartment, which the government would certainly give her, getting a kitten, and buying herself a big bed. But her dreams were not destined to come true, because the waiting list for housing was huge. In addition, Valeria learned that apartments were often given in which it was impossible to live. So the 18-year-old girl was left alone without a roof over her head. Of course, she had no prospects, because the education she received at the orphanage was no good at all. Lyra had to roam the streets for days looking for work, and at night she had to sleep on a cardboard box or under the roof of some building during Dodge. The worst part was begging for money for food, and then fighting off homeless people who wanted to steal the pennies or food they received from the poor woman. At one point, she was very lucky to be hired as a waitress in a cafe on the outskirts of town. The atmosphere there was not the best, but Lyra was glad even that. In addition, the owner let her sleep in the back room, provided she did not carry anything out of the warehouse, and that she cleaned up at night. After a month of work, the girl was finally able to rent a room in the same apartment. It was small, without repairs and with old furniture, but the heroine was satisfied with everything. She was doing well in the Café Romashka. Despite the lack of makeup and plain clothes, Valeria was very pretty, because of which visitors often left her generous tips. She was also immediately noticed by the son of the owners of this cave named Stas. The waitress liked him immediately. He was handsome and well-dressed, and the way he spoke. What sweet speeches Lara heard from him, and that she was the most beautiful, sweet, wonderful, and attractive. Until that moment, she had never heard anything like that in her address, so she quickly lost her head from the guy. Secretly from her parents, he made her nice presents, flowers, candy, clothes, and shoes. It was impossible to resist, and Valeria gave herself to him, with all the passion and love that awoke in her heart. She trusted this man, already made plans for how they would live together as friends, and then give birth to a child. Stanislav himself had repeatedly stuttered that he dreamed of having a son. "You won't leave me after that, will you?" naively asked the heroine, looking at her beloved with trusting eyes. They were lying in one bed under a thin blanket. "No, my darling. How could you think such a thing? I'm happy with you. It's mutual. I think we were meant to be together. We were meant for each other. Don't doubt that, my love." And the boy kissed her. In the morning, when Lara was preparing breakfast, Stas in a panic was looking for his wedding ring, which had apparently fallen out of his pants. As luck would have it, it was nowhere to be found. Not under the couch, not under the bed, and not on the bed itself. "Did you lose something?" Well, a bank card fell out somewhere. Can I help you?" "It's okay. I'll find it myself." He smiled at her seductively. "And then I'll come to the kitchen, and we'll have breakfast together. I'm waiting for you, my love." Stanislav was terrified. If he does not find this treacherous ring, his wife will give him a real scandal. And she was not an easy woman, and besides, she had a tough temper, and frankly speaking, her husband was a little afraid of his spouse. The guy still managed to find the ring in a pillowcase. He had no idea how it got there, but it did not matter. The main thing was that this time, Stas was saved. So the young people continued to see each other in secret. Valeria did not particularly like it, because she was counting on a serious relationship. The waitress constantly reminded her lover that he had promised to present her to his parents as a girl. But Stanislav kept on denying it, inventing various excuses. And at a certain point it was hard to think of anything anymore, because our heroine became pregnant. At first, she had a slight panic, because she did not plan to have children in the near future. She was young, lived in a small room, could barely make ends meet. But then Lara cheered up, thinking that Stas would surely be happy to know that he would soon become a father. "Sweetheart, I have good news for you." The waitress could not help smiling as she looked at her lover. "Did something happen?" "Yes, something very good." "Wow, I'm intrigued. Remember when you said you dreamed of having a stable family and a son?" "I don't recall," the boy frowned, realizing where this conversation was going. "That's a good one." The woman laughed and hugged him. "You and I are going to have a baby, darling." "And mammon, I see." Stanislav stretched out. The whole mood was spoiled, and the morning was beautiful, full of passion, as if they had plunged into the student years. But the euphoria disappeared in a moment because of the news they had heard. "That's a strange reaction you're having. I find you to be happy. I would be in 10 years, but it's too soon for both of us. We just started our lives. We've got everything ahead of us, and a baby's going to ruin it." "How can babies ruin anything? They bring joy and happiness to two people in love." "Lara, come to your senses. What happiness? You and I will think only of diapers and the baby, forgetting all about ourselves. We'll take all the time, attention we could have devoted to each other. Besides, I'm not ready for such a responsible step. How are we going to support a newborn baby? Have you thought about that? I just started my career." "Well, I assumed your parents would help us. I'm sure they'd be happy to have a grandchild." "Why would they help? It's not their baby, it's ours, so it's our responsibility." "No, you have to get an abortion." "What?" The ground instantly left Lara's feet after these words, and she felt dizzy, but still managed to hold on. How could Stas say such a horrible and disgusting thing? Doesn't he really care? That's our baby. How could he allow the thought of killing him? She covered her face with her hands and couldn't hold back her tears. Her heart clenched at the thought of going to the clinic and agreeing to terminate the life of her child. "You don't want to be a single mother, do you? You're just a waitress. You can't feed him. It's not a toy, it's a baby." "I'll manage on my own somehow," Lara answered through her tears. "What kind of nonsense is this? What kind of adolescent maximalism is this? You're either stupid or short-sighted. It's only in movies and TV shows women can cope with everything, and in real life is different. Don't make the mistake of ruining your plans. You better think long and hard about what I'm offering you. I'll pay for an abortion at a decent private clinic." "But where did you get the money from?" "You just started your career," Valeria answered sarcastically and looked at Stas with distaste. "There will be no abortion, I said at all. Your business, but do not count on my help," said the guy. At night the waitress cried into her pillow. thinking that all her dreams had been shattered overnight. She hadn't expected her lover to come across as such a scoundrel. Stanislav seemed to her to be a romantic with serious intentions, but in the end, he only wanted one thing from her. The heroine put her hand on her belly and stroked him. "It's okay, baby, you and I will get through this. Know that your mother loves you, and love will help us to overcome all difficulties. A lot of people can do it, can't we, You and I will be strong, and we won't be afraid of anything. I'm waiting for you to show up, my good man." A smile appeared on her face, and the tears stopped flowing from her eyes. Yes, Lara was cruelly deceived, but she had a little happiness for which she wanted to live and get better. But already in the morning, unpleasant news awaited her. The owners of the cafe found out about Valeria's pregnancy and her categorical refusal to get rid of the baby. They did not want their son to start any problems because of the stupid things he had done, so they decided to fire the waitress. "But what did I do wrong? We get complaints about you all the time, and you're slow, which the customers don't like. We need a more professional employee than you. But before, you used to say that everything was fine, and that you were happy with everything. Now you're not. So that's it, go away, don't waste our time. We, unlike you, have a lot of important things to do." With tears in her eyes and a lump in her throat, Lara carefully folded her uniform. She loved this job and this place. Now she was left in a terrible position, but even that thought didn't make her change her mind. When she came out of Chamomiles, she noticed an expensive car pulling up to her, out of which a stately and very beautiful person got out. She walked up to Stas and gave the boy a big kiss, and his parents greeted her warmly. So that's how it is. Apparently this is his steady girlfriend, maybe even his wife. The bastard, he's cheating on her too. I'm going over there right now and I'm going to tell them to their faces. Valerie really intended to do this, but at the last second she changed her mind. What good would that do? Stanislav will not rush to her with hugs, kisses, and marriage proposal. He will not accept the child, but only hate him and Lara herself. And she did not want to make enemies in the form of this family. It was better to leave with dignity than to plunge into the mud and strife. For 9 months, the woman had been waiting for the baby to be born. She already knew she was going to have a boy, and she was insanely happy about it. The heroine worked in different places, but since pregnancy was difficult, she did not manage to stay in one place for a long time. One day at one of her jobs, she was forced to carry weights. After that shift, Lara got a terrible stomach ache. She moaned with unbearable sensations, almost screaming. Valeria used her last money to order a cab and went to the hospital, believing that the ambulance would take too long to reach her.